Since the shooting of their daughter, Rochelle, in the Strathfield Plaza massacre, Ted and Janice Milburn of Wallsend have spent their days in two ways: replying to more than 200 letters of support, including one from the Governor, and thinking about what might have been if state and federal gun laws had been tougher. Mr Milburn says he's disappointed by the politicians' reluctance to push for reforms.
I like to see them do something about it. I think it's just the Labor and the Liberals just fighting and trying to pass the buck on each other, just making us all get worked up over it.
It's a sentiment shared by other families of hunter gun victims.
Very disappointed. I think it's got to happen to one of the politicians' families or loved ones before they're actually going to do anything.
It's just a political ball game, really. It's a matter of votes. Nobody's going to do anything because they might lose votes.
Of the local state parliamentarians contacted this afternoon, only Upper Hunter MLA George Souris would not say outright that tougher gun laws are needed. He thinks people should wait and see the outcome of various state and federal initiatives planned for the next few months. The shooting of her daughter Tracy Lee by a former boyfriend in Woodbury 3 years ago prompted Dawn Gilbert to organise a support group called Vocal, short for the Victims of Crime Assistance League. Vocal is holding a public meeting at West Leagues Club next Tuesday night to speak out against what they see as a lax justice system and soft gun laws.
We're ones that have suffered from the loss of our loved ones through guns, and I can't understand why they need weapons in a domestic situation.
Adam Walsh, a Year 10 student, feels very strongly about the way we now dispose of our waste.
People are just throwing it away and just dumping it in the environment, taking up too much land. It's giving off methane, which is bad for the greenhouse effect. It's doing all sorts of things, and people, the important people, just aren't doing anything about it.
On paper at least, he's come up with an alternative. Garbage would be sorted at the dump site, glass centrifuged off, and scrap metal picked out with magnets. Organic waste would be stored in tanks, and the methane gas given off by the decomposing matter could be harnessed for the generation of electricity. The methane could also be used to fire a steam engine, which would drive a granulator. Solid wastes, including old car bodies, could be broken down to the consistency of sand. The end product would be mixed with domestic effluent to serve as landfill or fertiliser. Even plastic wastes could be organically broken down.
Well, I believe that they are genetically engineering plastic-eating bacteria. I'm not sure on that. And they're also, what they're doing now is they're putting starch into the plastic, and they're bacteria eating away the starch, and in the process they're also eating part of the plastics.
Adam admits the realisation of his plan could be a long way off.
Once running, it would easily pay for itself because it's producing enough electricity to cover all its overheads and probably enough electricity to give extra power, extra LPG gas. But as far as setting it up is concerned, it would be expensive.
Well, that wraps up our look at the finalist entries in the EnvironFest recycling competition. The winner of a $2,000 first prize will be announced at Spears Point Park on Sunday. Many of the contestants will have their products on show, along with more than 80 other ideas promoting environmental awareness. Organisers promise guest speakers, as well as a full day of entertainment. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News. The latest plan, commissioned by the Newcastle City Council, the Hunter Region Enterprise Agency and numerous government offices, cost about $20,000. It's just one of a number of overviews on the suburb.
Since the earthquake, we've had a traffic study, an urban design study, and the council's put out development guidelines. There's a lot of paper been written, but this last one really ties it all together. It's a business plan that gives Hamilton the picture of how they can go ahead and promote the area for the next decade or so.
The plan probably doesn't tell the traders anything they didn't already know, and that is that in business they have to make their own opportunities. But it does call for a concerted effort to capitalise on the suburb's attributes, such as its multicultural atmosphere, variety and convenience of shopping. About $200,000 would be needed to spruce up the heart of town, and it suggested that this money be levied from the businesses. A committee or office would be set up to coordinate the funds.
One way we could go to have a full-time employee and have a major promotional campaign and do some really wonderful things with the streetscape and townscape improvements generally. The other way is to have a lesser fund and contract these sorts of things out so that the promotion and beautification could be done on perhaps a slightly lower scale.
Late this afternoon, Chairman of the Hunter Region SLSA Helicopter Rescue Service, Scott Derwin, presented a set of documents he claimed were proof of a takeover bid and named the people behind it.
It was a very comprehensive plan to take over services right around Australia, including the Hunter Service, by a private group, by a private company headed by Mr Geddes and by Mr Skeen. These documents indicate a continuation of the falsities and the innuendos and the misinformation which has been spread amongst this community over the past 3 weeks.
The detailed documents include drafts of a business plan, sponsorship proposals to Westpac and information addressed to the state government. Mr Derwin claimed they were written by sacked marketing manager of the service John Skeen months before his dismissal. Mr Skeen says he compiled a plan, but says it was merely a backup if negotiations for more local input into control of the SLSA helicopter failed, and they were never a preferred course of action. He said the only mention of services in other areas were part of a sponsorship proposal to Westpac, and not a plan to centralise control in the hands of the Hunter Group.
There's absolutely no intention whatsoever to do that, as has been stated by myself and others over the last few weeks. And more importantly, the papers were put together as a guideline to prospective sponsors, Health Department and various other people, if and when there had been a situation developed where this service folded.
Mr Skeen says he's concerned that the controversy whipped up by the accusations will cloud the real issue.
Mortgage on the helicopter was taken out. Secondly, that the control of the board and management of the service is based from Sydney. And thirdly, that all funding was being deposited into banks in Sydney and we had no financial control in Newcastle.
Skydivers from the Newcastle Sport Parachute Club discovered a novel way to raise money for research into sudden infant death syndrome. This week they donned red noses and jumped over Elderslie in the Lower Hunter Valley. Today they presented their donations to a representative of the association. But parachutists were not the only people in the sky wearing red noses. Airport staff in Sydney and a crew of Australian Airlines joined in to raise money. SIDS claims the lives of about 500 babies each year. In Newcastle, students and the wider community also gave their support to this worthy cause.
It's taken local engineer and pilot Don Phillips more than 20 years to reinvent the helicopter, or in this case the Phillycopter, and he was understandably anxious to see it take to the air.
A little bit apprehensive, but very confident. I know it'll fly. It'll fly all right.
Don's family and a small band of dedicated workers were with him to see his dream of building Australia's own helicopter take flight. The Philicopter is designed to take on similar imported aircraft for jobs such as stock mustering and training. With a price tag of about $150,000, its makers hope to see it break into the export market as well. Full-scale production could mean a bonus for the balance of payments figures, and Strait has been behind the project with a development grant. The Philicopter was painstakingly built in an old hangar at Rutherford, and Don feels it's time to see the aircraft take off.
The old adage that when the weight of the paper is equal to the weight of the machine, it's right, and we're getting pretty close to that at the moment.
Test pilot John Sonnefeld took the controls while Civil Aviation Authority inspectors moved onlookers back to a safe vantage point. The Philicopter hovered a metre above the ground for its first official flight. Hours of rigorous testing lie ahead before it takes to the wild blue yonder, but for now at least it has the thumbs up.
And history had been made at Harker Oval, with the celebrations beginning immediately. Players and managers were swamped by well-wishers who had to endure one of the longest waits in rugby league to see their team win a premiership. And captain coach Mal Graham was surrounded with backslappers. Opposing captain coach Neil Baker was a dejected figure as he stood silently and looked on at the merriment, but did pay a big compliment to the Scorpions. And last night, Toronto let its hair down in one of the biggest parties ever seen out the Lakes Way. Today, and feeling no pain, the players reflected on a reception they will never forget.
That was a great team effort, and the feeling in the club last night was just unbelievable. It meant so much to the people up here. It was just incredible.
Oh, great night. What can I say? You know, we're the premiers and that's it.
Toronto legend Lyle Peacock promised his wife years ago he would retire when the Scorpions won a flag, but has already put the armchair on hold, all in the name of retaining a player.
I've done a deal with Wally Crawford. Wally Crawford was our 5'8" was going to give it away, and I said to Wally, you continue on next year and I'll continue on, and I guarantee that the grass will be back on the ground. There'll be no grass burns for you next year.
And Wally Crawford may just keep the bargain. No one in rugby league begrudged Toronto their moment of glory, and it was a tremendous team effort that gave them the Tooheys Cup for 91.
"30-year-old Alex Van Olden died on the footpath in Hunter Street West after being jammed between a speeding car and a building. Police say he just left the Palais Royal nightclub and noticed his own car being driven from a nearby car park. Mr Van Olden grabbed a door of his car and was dragged on a wild ride as the vehicle swerved across the road and careered along a footpath. A trail of damage extended for a block, with the car finally coming to a halt against the wall of the Bellevue Hotel. Its driver, described as a blonde male aged about 20 and wearing a black and white floral shirt, fled the scene. Mr Van Olden's sister has made a further appeal to anyone who can help police in their investigations.
If anyone can come forward and give a description of the person, or can just tell the police anything about Alex at all, if he was with anybody, they just can come and just help.
Wallsend Hospital has been given a stay of execution because the Health Services Administrator, Dr Smythe, doesn't want to provoke a violent confrontation by moving patients through the picket line. However, Dr Smythe has a secret weapon which is causing patient numbers to dwindle naturally. Heart attack victim Dick McNair will go home today, as 2/3 of Wallsend patients have already done in the last month.
I am well enough to go home, and this hospital made sure I was well enough to go home.
Ironically, as the health of patients improves, the prospects of the hospital survival diminishes. Today there were only 55 patients at the hospital. Dr Smythe told staff at Wallsend Hospital on Friday that no new patients were to be admitted. However, since then, people requiring urology treatment have been accepted.
They're going to Wallsend because it's the only hospital in the area which we can perform a full range of urological procedures. The other hospitals in the area do not have the necessary equipment or expertise to do a full range of endoscopic urology.
Lola Cannon was told this morning she has cancer of the urinary tract. She was admitted to Wallsend Hospital today.
I felt that in view of the particular nature of her tumour, that the sooner we got things done with her, the better it would be for her long-term outlook.
A hearing before the Industrial Commission has been postponed until Wednesday. It will be held in Newcastle. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
As the players prepared to leave the Toronto Workers' Club to receive the praise of a suburb bursting with pride, the green and golds looked like the walking wounded. Some of the bruises had been won during the Scorpions' 21-10 victory over Wests on Sunday.
It was a little bit of an elbow, but nothing major.
But most of the Scorpions had lost their sting from 2 days of non-stop celebrating since the club won its first major trophy in 31 years of competition. Along the boulevard, shopkeepers were preparing for the street march, some hoping to make a buck out of the bash, others, like the local liquor shop, expecting more of what's been a bottler business since Sunday.
Still drinking mood, yes, very busy with the boys.
To the club's theme song, the team marched into the main street and into the adulation of the Toronto people. Finally, after 3 decades, Toronto's league followers had something to whistle about. Captain Mal Graham was a hero under siege.
I knew we were going to have a street parade, but I didn't expect so many people to be decked out, and especially the school kids and the streamers, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Toronto's favourite footballing son, Lyle Peacock, watched from the wings. Mayor Ivan Welsh hailed the league conquerors. Then for the Scorpions, it was back to the beer. Scott Bevan, NBN News. The furor surrounding the Hunter Region Rescue Helicopter Service is now into its 4th week, and with it comes a new list of players from outside the area. 2 members of the Sydney-based Care Flight Service and 1 each from Child Flight and the Gold Coast Rescue Helicopter called a news conference this afternoon to voice their support for a push to have this region's organisation put back into Hunter hands.
The only solution which can come out of this is for the people of the Hunter to own and operate their own regional helicopter.
The speakers were highly critical of the Surf Lifesaving Association's handling of the helicopter service. Peter McCormack from Careflight said his organisation was set up in 1986, parallel to the Westpac service, after a falling out with the SLSA. But there are no plans to form an alliance among services disgruntled with the association.
We have no desire to build up an empire of helicopters. We're happy to run our helicopter in Sydney, and we believe that other organisations can do the same, because each community is different, each community's need is different.
The Hunter Services sacked marketing manager John Skeen gave assurances there's no plans of empire building, merely a desire to give back to the community a service it's paid for.
Building a home is the dream of many, but for some in the Newcastle and Lake Macquarie area, those ambitions can be restricted. In mine subsidence areas, housing can be limited to lightweight materials such as timber and hardy plank, with some mined areas just 9 metres below the surface. Now, with support from the Mine Subsidence Board, a new footing system means brick veneer can be used. The footings are 500 millimetres deep, 150 more than usual, with added steel reinforcing. But the real strength comes in the design. 4 extra concrete arms are poured at each corner of the house, building in stability for any ground movements.
It's been designed by the engineers to withstand a 5-metre pothole, which means that if anything happened underneath the house, because of the structure of the footings, that the house would stay steady and there'd be no cracking of the brickwork.
The Mine Subsidence Board must be provided with a design certified by an engineer before work begins, and will also make checks on the actual construction. The system gives home builders new building scope, especially in shallow mining areas such as Lambton and Merriweather Heights. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Princess Ida is probably as relevant to audiences today as it was when written in 1884. It's Gilbert and Sullivan's dig at the women's emancipation movement, detailing the fate of a woman, Princess Ida, who sets up an all-female university. But the entrepreneurial princess was betrothed at birth, and even as she teaches her students to get by without men, her intended, disguised as a woman, invades the university with 2 friends. In typical Gilbert and Sullivan fashion, hilarious consequences follow. The production features a 40-strong cast and a 28-piece orchestra. The show opens on Thursday at the Newcastle City Hall Auditorium and continues until September the 14th. As it's done for the past 40 years, the company will donate the proceeds of the show to charity.
St Michael's Parish Church and the neighbouring community hall are often the target of nuisance vandalism, but church officials were staggered by the extent of the latest attack. The contents of the building had been overturned. A kitchen stove was torn from the wall, a television set smashed and holes punched in the walls.
I was amazed. I'd never seen anything like this before. A mess like this around the place.
Church warden John Hamilton discovered the damage when he opened the building late yesterday. The Samaritans' op shop is open for business twice a week. It's thought the vandals broke in on Sunday evening. Police believe the vandals may have broken in looking for money. When they found the cash register empty, they vented their frustration on the rest of the building. About 30 volunteers take turns operating the Samaritans Foundation appeal, and all are appalled by what amounts to an attack on the most needy people in the community.
Anybody that wants something, it's good clothing, it's second-hand clothing, but it's to all the needy people of the area.
It could be at least 2 weeks before the op shop is back in business. In the meantime, police inquiries are continuing. Tom Hilston, NBN News.